Welcome to Don't Chuck It Up, the podcast where we help students and families navigate the wild journey of the college search and applying to colleges without breaking a sweat. I'm your host, Chuck, and today we're talking all about grades and GPAs. And I'm happy to have an amazing guest with me, a long-term friend, a retired K-12 teacher, current adjunct professor, and a host of other things, but I'll let her introduce herself. Welcome to the show, Kristi Ross-Clausen. How are you doing, Kristi?
Thanks, Chuck. I am absolutely thrilled to be here today. I've been a big fan of yours, as you know, from the very time that you started all this work doing with the college students. We met through our mutual alma mater, Lawrence University, and I'm now teaching there just one class just this semester because odd things happen when you keep saying yes. And when you said you were looking for people to come on and talk, I was like, yes, this is my chance to share this little nugget of wisdom that I have that I hope is going to take a lot of stress off of people's shoulders, because we're supposed to love our education and enjoy what we're doing and not get all stressed out about it.
Well, and I think you really have a unique perspective on this whole education thing because, as I said, you're a former K-12 teacher. You are also teaching in the college world. You are a national presenter on issues of technical theater and theater safety. You've worked with Broadway shows and touring companies. Like, you've been around a lot of people and very successful people, and you've seen them both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. So you were probably the person that has responded to my guest requests the fastest. I usually put that call out every now and then about like, hey, who wants to come on the show and give some thoughts as to what you're seeing? And you responded really fast, and I appreciate that.
Well, I've been thinking about this for quite a while, and there are some Facebook groups that I'm a part of where there are parents on it. I do a lot of teaching still. Back when I was teaching K-12, I taught choral and general music, so I taught everything from age 3 all the way through high school. Got my master's degree in technical theater, pedagogy, theater for young audiences from UW-Madison. Taught at UW-Madison for a year, basically taking my mentor's role when I was there. Taught at Madison College, which I really loved. I'm an adjunct there. I teach occasionally adult theater education things, professional development courses there, depending upon what the demand is. I'm an IATC trainer. I go around and teach stagehands how to work professionally. I help my friend Tyler DeLong from the DeLong Foundation with the DeLong Academy, helping to develop educational things there and also do a bunch of training for them, primarily rigging based, but all aspects of technical theater. So a little bit of everything, music, theater, performance-wise. I worked with every kind of person you can imagine, from the Dalai Lama to the 3-year-old doing their very first dance recital who walk out on stage, pee all over, smile, and run off.
Well, and for those of you who are listening, Kristi is extremely well known in the theater community. I had the pleasure of going to see a Broadway show at the same place as Kristi, and after that we went out and got some drinks at a local bar, and several of the technical crew and the cast magically appeared, and they were fanning over you quite heavily, like, oh my gosh, it's Kristi, yeah. And I was just like, okay, well, this is fun, seeing Broadway performers go gaga overseeing you.
I'm very well known in a very small vertical. I'm also an Actors Equity stage manager, so a lot of the equity folks know me from my service to the union. Being an IA stagehand, a lot of the touring folks know me for my service to the touring people. I'm an honorary member of ACT, which is the touring stagehands local that if they're not a member of a home numbered local, they get put into ACT. So lots of people know me or know me from my social media contacts. And I try to be a person who speaks truth in an uplifting and supportive manner. There's so much bad, negative junk out there that if you can find somebody who you know is always going to tell you the truth based on all of their years of experience, based on all of the information and documentation that they can put together so that you can rely on them, that's huge. Huge, especially now that we have AI getting into everything.
And that's why you're perfect for this podcast, because the goal of Don't Chuck It Up is to de-stress and to make this process a whole lot more human and a whole lot more relatable and get the BS out of the way. And so what you wanted to talk about from your aspect as an educator is this idea of GPAs, grading, and just the craziness that students and parents are really freaked out about GPAs and grading.
Well, I think it's important that we look at some historical information, right? So when I was in elementary school, I was graded on a scale where 75 and up was required in order to pass. 93 to 100 was an A, and so on. So A, B, C, D, F. Um, and you also had an A1, which is like exemplary effort. In fact, people know the steak sauce. That's where the A1 descriptor comes from that. So that was the thing until about the time I graduated from high school in the 80s. And then we moved to a little bit easier math to do, where if 90 above is an A, 80s are Bs, 70s are Cs, 60s are D, 59 and below is an F. And that math is just a whole lot easier for more people to be able to grasp. And let's face it, most of us are math phobic in a bit or mathematically challenged. I personally flunked calculus twice, folks. I've had a very successful career. So
Right.
don't let that fool you. I just learned math is not my thing. I'll stick with music and language and the other places I do better.
I think the scale that you just brought up, which is the 90, 80, 70, 60, is what many of the parents who are listening and the counselors who are listening to the podcast come from. You know, when
Right.
as I was growing up, if you were in the 90s, you were an A kid. If you were in the 80s, you were a B kid. 70s, you were C, and so on and so forth. And we didn't really have as much back then of the weighted versus the unweighted. It was just a GPA scale. There wasn't like, you know, poor California kids right now, they have 4 GPA scales, and it's just ridiculous to know what's the right one and which one colleges use and what's important and what's not. So, at any rate, I wanted to jump in with that. So keep going.
Yes. And, theater people, yes,
Right.
and. So when I started to do my music pedagogy studies, I learned about a type of music education called Suzuki.
Yes.
And the goal of Suzuki education is not to be good enough. It's to master each song and master each thing that you do before you move on to the next thing. And you do it with a parent. You're not alone, but you're doing it with other people. You've got the other people that are in your group lesson. You've got your teacher there supporting you. You go home and during your practice, your parents are supporting you. So it's a well-scaffolded method of learning music. And I went, this is pretty cool. I like how this works. I'm going to try using a version of this with my elementary music kids. And I'm going to teach them how to count rhythms using words. So Suzuki teaches rhythms using words that are commonly spoken in that language. Talk to a Suzuki kid who's just learning on their tiny little eighth-size violin, and they'll tell you all about Mississippi Hot Dog, because that's the song that they're working on. So I used colors. So a quarter note was red, half note was blue, gray, A, gave you the 4 beats for a whole note. And then watermelon worked great for my 16th notes, and yellow, yellow, yellow for my 8th notes. And I taught the students, and I also want to jump in here very quickly and say, I was teaching in Madison, Wisconsin at a school that had a very high percentage of students that receive free or reduced lunch. So low socioeconomic students of a variety of colors and religions and all of that, but high poverty level school. And by the time I started doing this and the kids started to get caught on, and then I would hear that they were doing it at home and their parents were writing things down. Like the parents would just write the color words and then the kids would write down the musical notes. And we were able to develop that over the course of a couple of years where the kids just kind of bought into that themselves. So by the time I'd done this for a couple of years and we were recruiting for the 4th and 5th grade kids to go into orchestra, almost 90% of the kids signed up for orchestra because they felt really comfortable. They knew how to read the notes, they knew how to read the pitches, and they knew that they could be successful. So I went, okay, the thing that I was taught about curving this and having that bell curve where you've got about 15% getting A's and then you also have to have 15% getting F's, that's BS, because I want everybody to learn and everybody to be successful.
Right.
And I think that's true for all grade instructors. We want all of our students to be able to do the things that we're teaching them to do in class, knowing, fully accepting they're not all going to reach the exact same level of perfection or competence, but at least be able to understand that the abilities that the good Lord gave them and they're willing to put in the time and effort to make happen, right?
Yep.
So this bell curve, out with the doggies, let's not do that. And the percentage thing doesn't quite work in music, because in music, if I play this note and it's 85% right, that doesn't really exist in music.
Right.
It certainly doesn't exist in theater either. Either it's good enough for the situation that you're in or it's not. And one of the things, and I know that you also studied music at Lawrence, one of the things I loved about Lawrence was hanging around with the jazz musicians
Mm-hmm.
because their attitude was, come jam with us, play. Okay, that wasn't as good today, but you'll have a better day tomorrow. And Fred Sturm always used to tell me, you're only a half step away from a good note. So if you don't
Mm-hmm.
like the one you're on, go a half step in either direction and you'll find something you do. So that attitude of, come join us, we're going to help you be better, we're going to encourage you, we're going to let you know when you do things wrong, but by giving you, we're going to let you know when you do things wrong, but by giving you a way to do it better next time and
Mm-hmm.
standing beside you and helping to play with you. Where the classical folks, the people that were looking for symphonic careers in the orchestra, or God help them wanting to be a solo art song repertoire person for the rest of their life,
Yep.
they were very critical and very much cutting each other down. And it was a rather toxic attitude towards life and certainly towards education. And I got caught up into that because I was a singer. So all of the things we were studying were art song. I wanted to sing Broadway show tunes and sing things that made people happy. And instead I'm singing Schubert and Bach and, all those guys.
Yep.
All dead guys, all dead white guys at that. So I decided that as I was a teacher and going into this more, and I also started to work for the big testing companies where I would write test questions. I scored SAT essays for ages. I've probably read over 10,000 SAT essays over the years because I read a lot of them. And I got to the point where, okay, this is great. The people that are at the schools where they can have the tutors or the highly trained instructors that are teaching them the 5-paragraph essay format, that's
Mm-hmm.
lovely. I can't think of a single time in my adult life where I've had to write a 5-paragraph essay.
Right.
It's not a skill that we need anywhere other than academia.
And I have to
But
unteach it in the college essay process because the college essay is not done in the 5-paragraph form either. And I have to
right,
deconstruct that all the time. I'm just going, so what did you learn to write? Oh, I learned to write the 5, the intro, the 3 supporting, and then the
yep,
wrap up conclusion. And I said, great, take that entire thing and flush it out of your brain because we're going to be doing a very different style of writing for your college essay. And the kids go, but I don't know what to do. I said, that's fine. We will work on this together. We will explore. Just like jazz, we're going to put things together until it feels like it works. And it's like, oh, okay. But man, it's hard to get them to get rid of that 5-paragraph
oh
thing.
yeah. Well, and also that the attitude of there's one single best answer to everything.
Yes.
That's not
Yes.
how the real world works either, right? Today my solo might be different than tomorrow's solo because I'm feeling
Right.
really happy today and I'm feeling not so happy tomorrow. So getting kids to understand that there's more than one right way to do something, that's a big struggle that we both deal with also.
Mm-hmm.
So as I'm maturing more in my pedagogy and teaching
Mm-hmm.
and meeting more students from a global perspective, I start to realize that the grade letters are a snapshot. It's what
Yeah.
got assigned on that day based on what was done on that day. Just like solo and ensemble, I adjudicate solo and ensemble here in Wisconsin. And there are days where people come in and they're not feeling well, their dog died, whatever, and it's just not a good performance for that particular day.
Mm-hmm.
But people take those results as if it is absolute gospel. You got to start first, you're going to state, you're going to have a professional career, you're going to do all of these things. Like, no, none of that is guaranteed here. It means on that day they sang really, really well in the minds of that judge.
Yes.
That's it.
And
So,
that's the 2 key parts of that is the
yes.
person did really well. You nailed it that day. As someone who did years and years of state solo and ensemble, I'm very familiar with this. I did probably 8 to 12 events every year. Good Lord.
Yeah.
So help my accompanist. But it's also up to the judge and how the judge felt about it. They could have been familiar with the music and loved it and loved your interpretation of it.
Mm-hmm.
They could have
Mm-hmm.
been unfamiliar with what you just performed and then graded you down because they didn't know the context of that particular piece. They shouldn't, but they might. And
Right.
so it's a yin and yang thing. It's it's a little bit you, it's a little bit them, and then that ends up being the score. But just because you
Yeah.
scored really well that one day does not send you off to Broadway. And as you're aware, I used to do Conservatory of Music admissions, and
Mm-hmm.
these kids who had been told, yeah, you went to state, you clearly could be a music, professional. I had to stop them and be like, you were really good for your high school or for that performance or for that instance. But to be a professional, you have to be able to nail it day in, day out, week in, week out. And that's a whole different ballgame.
My husband is a great example of that. My husband is a lyric tenor with a gorgeous voice. He's also a man who suffers from intense allergies, and there's no way he could have a professional career
Right.
because his health will not allow him to do it. But gosh, I love what he sings to me.
Yeah. It's a great happy birthday every year, I'm sure.
Carmel Bain is my favorite.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Heart
Can't turn down some good Italian. There you go.
That's right. So as I'm learning to be a better teacher and learning how to get students to make progress more effectively and more efficiently, I'm also learning that it's not about the letter grade. It's not about putting some number to it. It's about, does this work, number one, for the situation that you're in, right? And number two, is it the best that that student can do on that particular day, given all of the things that they have going on in their life, the support that they've got, what their teachers know? We were talking about solo and ensemble. There was one day I listened to the same song 17 times in a row because that way the accompanist didn't have to move. And I realized about third person in that the teacher didn't know how to teach triplet patterns because all of the students were making the same rhythmic mistake. And then it was, do I mark down the student because they didn't perform it correctly? But I know where the problem lies because conversation with the accompanist, I found out the accompanist plays for their choir and the choir teacher, wanting her students to all have a great solo experience, taught them the number as a group and then had them each rehearse separately, individually, with the accompanist in order to do the performance at solo and ensemble. But they had all learned it together. So I was going to hear it 17 times all the way through. And there's no way I could go, hey, people number 14 through 17 in this list, let me talk to you for a minute here, because they're not going to learn it that quickly.
Let's explain a triplet before you get into this. Okay.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm saying you should have told. No, I'm saying, but this is a case that you wanted to stop them and say, okay, before you perform this song, you're going to do the triplet wrong. I'm just going to tell you right now. No. So how has this now changed how you're working with kids? Because what I'm seeing is they're trying to see what their GPA is within their own high school, and they're seeing they're going onto the Google machine, which I'm not a huge fan of for getting all of your data, and they're saying, oh, the average GPA of an admitted student for this college is this particular number, and I have to, which is I think where you're going with this, is I have to tell students that a 3.9 GPA is not the same from high school to high school or from context to context or from college to college. So, but they're all stressed out because if I don't have that 3.9 GPA, I have not been quote unquote successful and I'm not quote unquote college ready. So what are your thoughts on all of this?
And we've both experienced it where a student gets so distraught over this that they do themselves in. And I never, ever want to see anybody get to that point. And I've worked with parents. I've known parents. I try not to work with parents like this because they drive me crazy. I want to go, stop it. You're just, all you're doing is making your kid crazy. Just chill out for a little bit. Because again, it's about being the best you that you can be.
Yes.
And that's not something we can stick a number on. And today your best might be different than tomorrow. And hopefully 3 days from now, your best is going to be better than it was today or tomorrow. But it's not a linear thing. You get a little bit better, but then you slide back or something happens and there's a roadblock that comes in, or you need to take a month off for some reason. And then you come back at it and keep going. And eventually you continue to get better, right? So when I'm talking with parents who are like, how come my child is not being successful? Like your child is being as successful as they can be right now.
Yes.
One of the best things we can do for our kids is hand them a book, hand them many books, encourage them to read as much as possible.
If you're listening,
I found middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, and the library was my lifesaver.
If I was going to say, if you're listening, I have an episode called Reading is Fundamental. And the whole episode talks about when students say, how can I improve and prepare for college? The number one thing is read a book. Or how can I improve my ACT or SAT score? Read a book. How can I improve my writing and my communication skills? Read a book. Like, and to side note, I don't care what you read. I really don't. You don't have to read Shakespeare. You don't have to read what your English teacher has been telling you to read. You go to the library, have a conversation with the librarian, figure out something you want to read, fiction, nonfiction, dystopian, I don't care. Just read. Like, and I don't care if it's on a Kindle, on your phone, in real paper that was, hand pounded. I don't care. But like, just read a freaking book. Please get off your device, stop watching the videos, and read. So there's my sidebox. Okay.
Amen. And going along with that, right? Public libraries also have DVDs.
Yes.
They also have recordings. And it's not, now we've got things we don't even have to physically go to the library. There's a lot of things that are available over the internet that you can get that are still quality material, right? I grew up in tiny town, northern Wisconsin. We used to need 3 reasons to go to town. That was the rule at my household. So, okay, we need to go to the post office. We need to pick up some milk at the store. We're going to go to the library. The library is often the 3rd thing. And I would check out an armload full of books every week. Some I read in great gory detail. Some I just kind of scanned through. Some I went, oh, this is boring. Why did I ever pick this up off the shelf? But it gave me a breadth of knowledge. So I can have a conversation with pretty much anybody in the world and be reasonably intelligent about it. Now, if you ask me about the organic chemistry and how all that works, I'll be like, yeah, that's fascinating. Tell me more, because I'm going to absorb that because I don't know that. But there are other things that I'm able to share the knowledge of. So getting back to how we evaluate students and how this has changed over the years. About 5 years ago, I was asked to go to Madison College, which is Madison Area Technical College. Also, it's a community college and a technical school all jammed into one. So the name really doesn't matter because if you want to study something, they probably have it there.
Yep.
Want to learn to be a great cook? You can do it. Want to learn how to fix your car? You can do it. Want to study Shakespeare and history? You can do that too. And my charge there was to teach a 1-year certificate of how to be a stagehand with the goal of having everybody in that program be able to be employable as an IATSE stagehand by the time they finished. I didn't get to pick the classes that were put together to make this certificate program. But I had this really awesome students. And I went, guys, this is an experiment. We're going to try some things and we're probably going to fail at some things, but hang with me. I'm not going to abandon you. I'm not going to let you down. I guarantee if you do the things that I ask you to do, you're going to be able to be employable in this industry, assuming that you'll show up on time, clean and sober, with a decent attitude and bringing the tools that you need, which is what everybody should do for any job that they're doing. And by the time we were midway through the first semester, every single student was working somewhere in the stagehand industry, either through the college, through the IA, for local employers. Just the doors opened wide and people were so happy to have these students there. And the attitude that I took was not, you got 90% or above, you get your A. It's, can you do this or not? So one of the first stagehand things that we teach are a series of knots: bowline, figure 8, clove hitch. I don't know if you can tie a clove hitch exactly right. Does it work? Does it hold? Will it lift the thing that it needs to lift? Great, you get the points. So instead of going to that, I have to do this crazy math with all of these different percentages, it's either you get it all the points or you don't get all the points for this particular task. And it might be week 14 of the semester, and I might ask them to do something that we did on week 3, because going back to the whole Suzuki thing, I want them to keep that knowledge fresh in their mind as they're going. And I found that to be incredibly successful, not only for the students, because they build the self-confidence of, oh yeah, I still remember how to do that thing that I did 2 months ago, but also they know that the things that they're doing are things that they're actually going to be asked to do at the next level or in the workforce or by other people in the educational system as they continue their education. And because they can see how this all applies, they enthusiastically jump into it. So that's my soapbox about why I wanted to talk about grades. It is a slice. It is not a life sentence. You can totally fail something. Like I said, I failed calculus twice. I don't think my husband will mind if I say this. He failed English, and then he went to a 4-year school and got an A in English.
Yeah.
So different teacher, different day. Yeah.
I readily, when people ask me, like I have 2 bachelor's degrees and a master's degree, I readily tell people that I have a D+ in music history, and that's because the professor and I were just on 2 different wavelengths, which is fine. And that has never impacted my future whatsoever. No one has ever asked me what my undergraduate GPA is ever. And I want to go back to what that number means and why students are so worried about it is because we have a hard time across the country figuring out, how am I valued by colleges? Am I worth what they are looking for? Am I what they're looking for, period? And so
Yes.
in the United States, we've gotten to the GPA as the indicator of this is what a college is looking for. Now, putting on my hat as a previous admissions counselor, it all, and my fellow colleagues will agree with me, is it's all within the context. So it depends on what high school you're at. It depends on what type of
Right.
curricula you're taking. Depends on how you've done over the course of your 4 years. It's also, like you, why I'm not a big fan of ACT or SAT, because that is a one-day snapshot that is a
Mhm.
flash in the pan. And again, you might have had a great day and gone into that test and done really well. You might have
Yeah.
missed your alarm and scrambled to the test center and arrived 30 seconds before it started, and therefore your test score was abysmal. Does that mean you're going to be horrible? No. The speaker and educator Malcolm Gladwell did a great podcast about how test scores really are not testing your knowledge. They're testing, are you a tortoise or are you a hare? So can you answer things slowly and methodically? You might not get a great score, but you're going to be fine in the long run of life. Or can you answer them very quickly? You're going to get a high score, but again, that may not help you over the long term of life, depending on what your job is. So students are trying to figure out, how are they valued academically? And so they're using the GPA, and then colleges every year post, this is the profile of our admitted student class.
Mhm.
So they're taking their 500, 600, 1,000 new students and putting them into this one sheet of, here's the average GPA, here's the average test scores, here are the most common majors, here are the, like, very specific characteristics and qualities without the context. And
Exactly.
because I work with students nationally, I have to help them understand, like, okay, I'll point out the state of New York operates on a 100-point grading system. So does the state of Texas. They don't know how to translate their 100-point GPA into what most colleges operate on a 4.0 scale.
Yeah.
University of California system operates on a very different scale, and they only count certain classes in their GPA when they're calculating a University of California GPA. So as a counselor, I'm trying to help students understand what this number means. But they're also going within their own high school, and they're saying, okay, so the kid last year who got the best GPA, this is where they went to college. So if I want to get to that college, I have to have that GPA. And I'm going, not necessarily.
No.
This is why you see kids who have a 3.0 who magically get into these hyper-selective schools. There's another context. There's another reason why they were admitted. There's something else that is going on.
Yep.
And let's be real, parents. How many times have you been asked what your high school GPA was in the success of life? I'm going to guess 0. I'm really going to guess 0. It might be 1% or 2%, but I don't know why. And this constant, I have to get an A, I have to get an A to prove that I am a great student. I'd love your point. Show me that you understand the knowledge, not that you can score a great score, because kids are just
Mhm.
doing the
Mhm.
bubbles. They're like, okay, I can bubble everything. I can get the grade for that particular exam, and then it gets flushed out of my brain and off I go. I think because both you and I came from a liberal arts education, it wasn't about, can you regurgitate the answer? It was, can you build on your previous answers and understand
Right.
the how and the why? I can use the Google machine to figure out the who, what, where, when, and whatever date, whatever president was in the United States, but I can't figure out the how and the why from a Google machine. I need to understand the context and the concepts in order to get to that part. So I, I,
Mhm.
I really wish students would just take a deep breath about your GPA and be like, oh my gosh, I have an A minus. I have to repeat the class because I won't have a perfect GPA anymore. And as the kids say, I'm cooked. I'm like, no, you're not cooked with an A minus. And yes, the most selective colleges still take kids that have those maybe not perfect 4.0 GPAs. Get over it. I want you to sleep when you need sleep. I want you to rest when you need rest. I want you to not have to worry between your AP exam and do I go to prom? Like, if you want to go to prom, go to prom.
Oh, yes.
The AP
Yes.
exam is not going to change your life course. It really isn't. I'm sorry. College Board would probably argue with me, but tough. Like, it's not going to alter your life's work if you only get a 3 on your AP exam versus a 4. Who cares?
AP wasn't even an option in my high school.
My
Didn't
generation is the
exist.
first one that had really a lot of APs, and I'm like one small segment of years younger than you are, but like
Yeah.
my era was the one where all of a sudden AP College Board got in the market and they saw, hey, we can do this. And we used to have AP subject tests. We don't even have the AP, or we used to have the SAT subject tests. We don't have those anymore. We
Right.
just have AP
Right.
exams now. But it's just a way for them to make money, for the College Board and the APs to make money. That's really what this is, people. This is a way for them to make a ton of money. There's the secret sauce.
I will argue, I think the curriculum for AP US history is one of the best curriculums for a high school level I've ever laid eyes on. Absolutely loved when my son was going through that. There are some others I go, ugh, why are we slogging through this?
Well,
The
and
thing I think, um,
I was going to say, many of my students love AP psychology. It's the first time that they felt actually excited about a high school class. And I think that doesn't say that the AP exams are better. It means that we need to, like, our K-12 education has not been altered. I can do K-12 advising because we take the same math progress, we take the same social science progress. Like, we haven't
right.
changed anything. Unless you go to like an IB school, an international baccalaureate school, which is a very different system, or you go to a magnet school or a charter school that operates on its own educational philosophy, so many high schools, public high schools, just operate on the same, these are the courses that you take every year. And it's the same that the parents are taking that now
Yep.
the kids are taking. Like, nothing has changed. It really hasn't. Now we've just added exams to be like, oh, take an AP exam to prove that you learned it.
And what's frightening to me as an adult living in 2026, I'm watching how AI is sending its slop out, and the ability to discern what is factual and what is made up is going to become even more vital to
Yes.
just simply existing.
Yes. So when we get
Um,
into that whole conversation of is how do you make yourself AI proof, you need to be able to understand what AI is
right.
putting out and fact check it
Yes.
with your
Yes.
own little brain that goes, that doesn't seem right. Does that make sense? I don't think it does. Hold on. Let me look at this in a different angle. That's liberal arts. Let's look at this in a different
Yeah.
point of view to be able to figure out if this is correct or not. I will honestly say I use Claude as part of my research on things, but I always, and Claude even says, we do not guarantee our results. Make sure you check, your information before you do stuff. And I always do because it's not always right. It's not. It is based off of who programmed it. And if the person who programmed it incorrectly, it's going to spit out incorrect information. It's a great
Mhm.
search tool, but you have to still understand the stuff that it gives you to say, yes, that's correct, or nope, try again.
There's an old computer programming term called garbage in, garbage out,
Yes.
which is very much the case right now.
Yes.
And if you know that those particular AI models that are predominantly available at this point in time are being normed on healthcare, which is a place where they're excellent for the most part, and business, where they're okay for the most part. When I try to ask any one of those AI agents to do something theater wise, because so much of our vocabulary in theater is borrowed from other places, I
Correct.
get the weirdest responses. And there was a person who used AI to write a textbook. This is somebody with an MFA, not an
Mhm.
undereducated individual at all. And I was looking through this textbook going, gosh, this is good, this is good. But then I got to the section on electricity for theater, and the picture of footlights was completely wrong. And I went, ooh, okay, Google has a reverse search. I'm going to put this in there, and got out, this is an AI-generated image. Okay, let me look a little closer. And I looked at the rigging section. So I helped my friend Tyler DeLong, who has a rigging company, and I do training for him on rigging, and looked at that section and went, oh my gosh, if the if a person reads this and does what's in this book, there's a good chance they're going to get hurt and or kill themselves or somebody else. This is really bad. So I let that individual know, I can't support your book. I'm not going to put it on any of the websites that I've got. I'm not going to promote it in any way, shape, or form because
There's
you
an
could
error.
kill somebody.
Yeah.
And he's like, but it's been over a year doing this. And I'm like, yeah, I know. However, it's still not information that I'm willing to share because I don't want that on my conscience.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping as we're walking around with the knowledge of the world in our pockets these days, I'm hoping that we get more of our students, more of our young people to go, okay, I want the authentic thing. I want the book. I want an author I can pick up the phone and call or send a
Yes.
message to and get a response from. And it's amazing now in my not so dote age how many friends of mine have written books. I'm in the process of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And how fun it is for them to hear from people who've read the book or have questions about it, including textbook authors. So there's the opportunity is there. We just got to be careful about how we're using this information that we're getting.
Absolutely. And we also need to be aware of how we are, quote unquote, assessing if you know this information or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
really, people do not understand GPAs and gradings, and we're trying to oversimplify something to get a data point. And there's much more to learning and knowledge and your career than just a data point.
Yeah.
It's, as you said, it's asking the questions, it's getting the experience. When you were creating that class for stagehands, it wasn't just about the knowledge that they learned, but it was the experience they were of actually doing it, that probably was just as beneficial as the knowledge itself, because then they could say, oh, not only have I learned it, but I have done it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what
Mm-hmm.
admissions is looking for. Yeah, we want to see in admissions that you've taken the classes to make sure that you are at a, for lack of a better phrase, college-ready type curricula. I want to make sure that you have challenged yourself. I see students that have a 4.0 and they have 4 study halls their senior year, and they're only taking, 2 or 3 academic classes. And they'll say, well, I have a 4.0. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't think you're academically
Do something.
ready for, get your butt out of the study hall. Go do an internship, go do something, but stop taking all these
Right.
study halls, these early release things. So college counselors, like when I read an application, I spent the most time staring at that transcript and trying to understand, okay, what classes did they take? How did they change in their trajectory? And then I looked to the activities and their involvement, both in school and out of school, volunteer work, whatever they provided. And I said, how are they enriching their lives, knowledge-wise and experience-wise, outside of the classroom? The classroom gives you some knowledge, but then how are you doing it before school, after school, summers, weekends? How are you spending your time? And I wasn't looking for, I won a Nobel Prize, or I researched the solution to lung cancer, or I created a not-for-profit. No, I wasn't looking for that. I was looking for, what's your quest? What's your goal? What's your joy? What's your passion? So to all the parents and students who are listening, who are worried that they don't have a 4.0 and they're not going to get far in life, I think you and I would tell that person, screw the
Relax.
GPA. Yeah. Find
Yep.
the place that wants you, find the place that is going to challenge you and support you and give you the opportunities that you need. And no one's going to care about your dang GPA, with the exception of law schools and med schools. And even they are backing off on that because they want to see more experience and less GPA A's. They're trying to get future thinkers, not future 4.0 kids. So yeah.
Yeah. There was a professor at Lawrence, I'm not sure if he was still there when you were, but he would tell the students, he had primarily freshmen in a political science class, and he would tell them, seniors might get I get an A, seniors might get an A, juniors might get a B, you'll be lucky to get a C in this class, kind of, intimidating them. And so when I teach, I'm very upfront with, I want you to be able to do the things the best you can do them in the time that we've got available. I can't make you perfect in 15 weeks. But if you walk in the door and you know nothing and you leave in 15 weeks moderately competent in this skill, you are a tremendous success.
Yes.
And that might be even better for you and farther than if it was just I call it the cafeteria plan, where the teacher goes, here, this is what I'm teaching, take it or leave it.
Mm-hmm.
And the ability for students now to be able to self-teach if they're so motivated.
Yes.
I think of all of the courses that are available online. We've got mega classes are available online. YouTube University, I had a student who had never touched a lighting board. He was in my class on Friday. On Monday night, he was going to be working with one of the world's best lighting designers for the rock and roll industry.
Fun.
And he'd never touched the light board as a programmer. And I went, okay, so ETC, the manufacturer of this light board, has some really good videos. I'm going to highlight the ones that I need you to watch over the weekend so you know how to patch, program, record, what a Q stack is, navigate, and so on. And he came in Monday to class and I said, how'd you do it? He's like, well, those videos were really great. I watched all of them. Oh, I gave you 10 out of a list of 30. Great. And so I went up during rehearsal and talked with the designer, who I've known for years, and went, so how's he doing? He's like, well, he listens carefully. He pays attention. He's remembering what I tell him. I think he's going to be great. And he ended up working as an intern for ETC, which is the world's largest lighting company, in New York City the following summer as their Broadway intern.
Yeah.
Simply because he took the initiative to do it on his own. And it's not like he was even taking a formal class to do it. He watched the videos, did the self-study, listened, made the connections, continued to learn. And as a professional in the entertainment industry and working as a teacher, school is never out for the pro. I don't care how old you are, whatever you're doing, there's still going to be ongoing education. And it's okay if it's not in a college classroom. And it's okay if it is in a college classroom and you're 40 years old going back to get your master's like I was. So
who cares?
You keep doing it.
Yeah. I'll share a similar story. I worked with a young man who he never was formally diagnosed, but I quickly figured out that this kid had a horrible case of dyslexia. We're talking could barely read a standard English sentence. And really, you could just tell looking at his transcript, like his math and his science grades were quite strong, and his English and his reading type history were just abysmal, just bad. And we quickly got him into services and got him accommodations, and he started to improve his reading skills and learn how to deal with the dyslexia. And I said, well, what do you love to do? What geeks you out? And he goes, well, can I tell you about the fishing boat that I found on a friend's property? And I've talked about this in a couple other podcasts because I think it's just an amazing story. He and his friend found a fishing boat. The motor did not work. He really wanted a fishing boat. The guy who owned the boat said, well, if you can fix it, you can use it. And the kid went, bet, I got you. And he went on what you would call YouTube University and watched videos, looked up the type of model that it was, and he had to go to the hardware store, and there was a couple times that he got the wrong part and put it in and it didn't work. And so he had to undo it all and go get a different part and do it again. And he ended up getting it to work. And he was really marveled that he could finally do something because he wasn't able to write or to read well. And so part of what I taught him was how to use AI to do speech to writing text, because he could talk. He was really eloquent young man and was very, verbal as he could tell stories for days. I said, well, stop writing it, talk it. He goes, well, what do you mean? I'm supposed to type my essays. I'm like, no, your English teacher said you have to write essays in class. When you are outside of the classroom, you can use whatever tools that you have available to you. And so I showed him how to set up the speech to text thing. And his essay was one of the most moving essays I think I have ever read in my entire life. And it does not surprise me that he was admitted to every college that he applied to because of the story he told in his essay, of the story he talked about in his of fixing the fishing boat, and all the things that. Sure, his GPA was not great. He was very Joe average, but he was getting scholarships and getting admitted to places because he showed he had the capability and the tools and the get-go and the drive to figure out how to make it work. So I love the fact that I work with the vast majority of my students are not 4.0, and they feel that they aren't good enough. And I show them that there are hundreds, if not thousands of colleges that think that they are good enough. And it's about how you deal with this information and process the world rather than
Right.
what the frickin' grade says on your transcript. Like, move on.
Yeah. I tell students gumption gets you far.
Yeah.
I would rather work with somebody who wants to make it happen, who wants to work, who's willing to ask the hard questions and to be told, that might not work, but let's try it. Let's see what happens. Let's make it a place where you can fail and learn from the failure without becoming a failure.
Yeah.
And we don't do that often enough. So often, especially in K-12 school, right, there's a single right answer. When did Columbus sail the ocean, right? Everybody knows that number. But
Are we sure?
if I ask why, well, yeah, that's true too, right? But if I ask for why or what happened afterwards, what were the effects of that? That's a harder question. But those harder questions are the things that we actually need to do and concern ourselves with as we are in the work world, in the real world. I look at a lot of resumes. I have several dozen people that I mentor, and if I see somebody's looking for a job and they send me a resume and it's just a mess, I'll call them up and go, hey, let me give you some tips, because you're fresh out of college and you sent me a 4-page resume that is not indicative of who you are. I don't care that you worked at a daycare. You're applying to work in a theater. Okay, there might be some overlap between daycare and theater, but helping people to be better at the things that they do and to help them communicate what is needed for others to see that, here are the things that I've done, this is my goal, these are the things that I want to have happen in my life. And another thing is, it's okay to not know. My first career out of Lawrence, I worked in a bank for 4 years and I hated it, hated every single minute. And my boss finally called me and went, you're not happy here. We should figure out what you should do for the rest of your life because you're too good a person to not be happy. What? It's okay if I am not, I can leave? Cool. And she encouraged me to go back and get my teaching certification. So I did that. And I worked as a stagehand. I did an apprenticeship, which is a totally different way of learning also. The IA local here has an apprenticeship that's a formal apprenticeship, but not a registered apprenticeship. Registered means it's registered with the state, or there's a federal registry also. But our formal apprenticeship has a 20 some odd page written exam. We do a practical exam that's about 4 hours long, where you have to show that you know how to do a variety of skills. You have to be able to give directions to others clearly. You have to be safety minded. And it's a test of attitude as much as it is a test of skill, because some days you're taking the orders and some days you're giving the instructions. So you have to be able to do both sides of it. That's a whole other way of learning that we don't talk enough about. And I've known several people that have done the IBEW electrician apprenticeship and then went back later on and got a master's degree in electrical engineering and started to develop things. So it's not like I'm going to do this one little slice and I'm going to spend my 4 years and I'm going to be done. I've got my bachelor's and life is all set. No, probably not. And enjoy all of the things and opportunities that you get. I still love when I get to travel. I'm going to Arizona in a couple of weeks to talk to their CTE education folks out there about theater safety. I'm going to take a class myself this summer for a weekend at Purdue and learn about entertainment engineering, because the guy that teaches it is awesome. So there's more than one way to get the information. The ultimate goal is you get the information, you get the knowledge, and you enjoy what that brings. My grandmother used to say, the richest person in the world, the poorest person in the world, nobody can steal what they know. So go and get it.
Well, Kristi, it has been an absolute blast having you here on the Don't Chuck It Up podcast. To learn more about Kristi and the work that she is doing out there, check out theaterhealthandsafety.com. You can reach out to her there. I love your tagline on your website, have brain, will travel. So you are clearly a student of the world, especially an expert in the technical theater and theater training and safety industry, but you really are someone who brings a lot of great information and resources. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come and chat with me here on the Don't Chuck It Up show.
You are so welcome, Chuck. It was great to have a chance to talk with you.
Well, folks, thanks for listening to Don't Chuck It Up. If today's episode was helpful, be sure to subscribe and share with a family navigating the college search and the application process. I'll be back next week with more tips and tricks. Until then, remember, don't chuck it up.
Don't chuck